In life, there are many different types of luck. There is dumb luck where something great happens totally by accident. There is the long shot where you only have about a 5% chance of success. There is lottery luck. Well, you win the lottery. But there's one last type of luck that even the lottery would have trouble beating. That is an act of God. Few people in history have ever been this lucky. As a matter of fact, what does it even look like? An act of God would be a type of luck where a person should be dead. However, by some random factor or crazy series of events, they continue to live. Maybe someone survived free falling from the sky. Perhaps they got some sort of life-threatening injury but pulled through. And today, we're counting down 10 people who beat the odds and survived the most impossible scenarios. If this is your first time, then welcome. Be sure to hit the subscribe button while you're here. Also, don't forget the bell so that you can stay up to date on our newest releases. With that being said, let's get into it. Number 10. Dr. Anna Bagenholm, Extreme Hypothermia. Hypothermia is one of the most deadly things a person can experience in the cold. Dr. Anna Bagenholm experienced that firsthand in May of 2000. It was then that the 29-year-old adventurer was skiing on a familiar trail just outside of Narvik, Norway, and lost her balance. She fell down a gully headfirst into an icy river. Her head and body became stuck under the ice, but she found an air pocket so she could breathe. However, she remained stuck under the water for around 80 minutes. By the time her friends were able to get to Bagenholm, her body temperature had dropped to just 57 degrees. Her vitals were so low that she was clinically dead, but doctors were able to revive her by pumping her blood through a special machine that warmed it up. With the exception of a persistent tingling sensation in her hands, she made a full recovery. Number 9. Aron Ralston, amputated his own hand. In April of 2003, 27-year-old Aron Ralston was climbing Utah's Blue John Canyon when an 800-pound boulder fell on him, crushing his right hand and leaving him trapped. After hours of struggling, he was unsuccessful and realized that he could not get free. After being trapped for 6 days, Ralston realized that the only way out was to amputate his crushed arm. Although he had lost feeling in his arm, he recalled the pain of cutting nerves and breaking bones was 100 times worse than he had ever felt. But he was able to get free and found help. His story of survival was the inspiration for the movie 127 Hours. Number 8. Mauro Prosperi, Lost in the Desert. One of the most dangerous races in the world is known as the Marathon des Sables, which means Marathon of the Sands. It takes place through the Sahara Desert in Morocco. In 1994, Mauro Prosperi took part in this race. Partway through day number 6, a sandstorm caused Prosperi to lose his way. Disoriented, he ran several hundred kilometers in the wrong direction. He ran out of food and water and survived by drinking his own urine and eating bats at an abandoned mosque he found. After weeks of being alone, he attempted suicide by slitting his wrists. However, the attempt failed because the lack of water had caused Prosperi's blood to thicken and clot before he could die. Eventually, though, he was found by a nomadic tribe in the country of Algeria and taken to the hospital, where he made a full recovery. Number 7. Poon Lim, Adrift at Sea. In November of 1942, a British merchant ship was sailing just off the coast of South America when it was hit by a torpedo from a German U-boat and sank. The only survivor was a 24-year-old Chinese man named Poon Lim who had jumped overboard. Among the debris, he was able to find one of the ship's rafts and climb on. He salvaged a few things from the wreckage in order to eat, drink, and fish. Lim drifted for 133 days until he was rescued by a Brazilian fisherman 10 miles off the coast. The local newspaper reported that Poon was badly sunburned and had lost 30 pounds. With the exception of an upset stomach from eating raw fish, he was in good health. He went on to become a U.S. citizen and lived a full life until his death in 1991. Number 6. Anatoly Bugorsky, Particle Accelerator. Located in Prodvino, Russia, is a particle accelerator, a machine that uses electromagnetic fields to propel charged particles at very high speeds and to contain them in well-defined beams. Anatoly Bugorsky was working on this particular accelerator and needed to check a malfunctioning piece of equipment. As he was leaning over the piece of equipment, he stuck his head in the part through which the proton beam was running. Reportedly, he saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns but did not feel any pain. As it turns out, he took about 200,000 rads of radiation. The left half of his face swelled up beyond recognition as the beam has burned through parts of his face, bone, and brain tissue. It has been believed that 500 to 600 rads was enough to kill a person. Doctors were certain he would pass away. However, he defied the odds and survived. Although he suffers no mental loss, the left half of his face is completely frozen and does not age. He also has no hearing in his left ear. Number 5. Truman Duncan, cut in two by a train. It is pretty universally known that being hit by a train is certain death. The force and weight of these monstrous machines leave little to be recognized from an unfortunate victim. Truman Duncan was a railroad switchman for a number of years and was working one day when he accidentally fell in front of a moving train car. His upper body was swept underneath the train, but his lower body didn't. The wheels of the train cut him in two. Despite losing both legs and a kidney, Duncan was able to call the paramedics on his cell phone and survive a 45-minute wait. Rescuers held little hope that things would end well for Duncan, but he survived and later persevered through 23 surgeries. Number 4. Roy Sullivan, multiple lightning strikes. The chances of being struck by lightning are astronomical, but what are the chances of being struck 7 times? Nearly impossible? Not for Roy Sullivan. This Virginia forest ranger was one of the most unlucky people alive as lightning seemed to be unnaturally attracted to him. Through his life, he had been struck by lightning 7 times and survived each strike. Here is a list of his strikes. 1942, lightning strike shot through his leg, knocking his big toenail off. 1969, second strike burned his eyebrows off and left him unconscious. 1970, third strike seared his shoulder. 1972, fourth strike caught his hair on fire, requiring him to put it out with a bucket of water. 1973, fifth strike burned through his hat, setting his hair on fire again. 1976, sixth strike left him with an injured ankle and little else. 1977, seventh strike was the worst, sending him to the hospital with burned chest and stomach. Even Sullivan's wife was struck one time when a sudden storm welled up as she was outside hanging laundry. Sadly, Sullivan died in 1983 at age 71 by way of suicide, over troubles unrelated to lightning strikes. Number 3. Todd Endress shark bite. In August 28, 2007, Todd Endress figured it would be a good day to go to the beach and do some surfing. However, his trip suddenly turned horrific. While in the water, a 12-foot shark found him and took 3 separate bites out of him. As he was yards from shore, he didn't think he would be able to make it back before the shark struck again. However, a group of dolphins who have no love for sharks formed a circle around him, preventing the shark from attacking a 4th time. By the time he had made it back to shore, he had lost half of his blood. Once at the hospital, he required over 500 stitches and 200 staples to repair the damage. However, he was able to make a recovery and still enjoy surfing to this day. Number 2. Helen Claiborne starvation. Claiborne, a resident of Seattle, Washington, had made plans to travel to Canada in 1963. However, she was a little short on cash. Wanting to save some money, she decided it would be less expensive to fly with an amateur pilot. However, it turned out to be a fateful choice when her plane crashed while flying through a snowstorm. The plane went down in the Canadian wilderness. She and the pilot suffered some broken bones but survived. Unfortunately, though, they were not equipped with survival gear except for some matches. Their food supply consisted of 4 cans of sardines, 2 cans of tuna, 2 cans of fruit cocktail, and a bottle of vitamin pills. They finished that in a week and had to survive strictly on water while they waited on rescue. Fortunately, both she and the pilot were overweight and their bodies burned fat for energy for an additional 42 days until an aircraft finally spotted them. Number 1. Janelle Guzman McMillan, World Trade Center collapse. One of the saddest days in history was September 11, 2001. That day, Janelle Guzman McMillan was at work in her office on the 64th floor of the World Trade Center's North Tower. Suddenly, her building was struck by American Airlines Flight 11. At the time, everyone was told to stay in place and wait for help. Janelle decided instead to head for the stairwell. When she had made it to the 13th floor, a wall suddenly collapsed on her. She was trapped and couldn't see anything except for black. Time seemed to stand still. After 27 hours, though, she heard the voice of a man named Paul telling her to remain calm and that rescuers were on the way. Janelle had been spotted by one of the 300 search and rescue dogs that were deployed. She was the last living person pulled from the wreckage. What are some amazing stories of survival that you know of? Let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some of our previous videos for more great content. We'll see you next time.